Hello, everyone. My name is Debbie Schnorr, and I'm the Environmental Education Coordinator for the University of California Cooperative Extension. I'm also a Master Gardener and a Master Food Preserver. And today's presentation is on household food waste reduction, and the title is Plan, Prep, Preserve, Your Path to Saving Food and Money. And if you're joining as a gardener, you may be wondering what is the connection between food waste reduction and gardening. And it's this, we benefit the environment by using as much of the food we grow as possible. And the information I'm going to share is from an educational program I've been working on with a team of UCANR, Agriculture and Natural Resources advisors, and we're all part of the UC Consumer Climate Change Literacy Work Group. And I want to thank my coworkers, as well as our community partners and participants who participated in our pilot classes. And this work was funded by a grant from ReFed, which is a US-based nonprofit dedicated to stopping food loss and waste in the food system. And before we get into the meat of the presentation, I wanted to give you some background on UC Cooperative Extension. Cooperative Extension is a collaboration between the university and the counties of California. So in San Bernardino County, we have the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program, FNEP, 4-H Youth Development Program, Master Gardeners and Master Food Preservers, and Environmental Education. So each county has its own programs. We also have academic advisors who are experts in areas such as natural resources, horticulture, urban ag, and other areas. And just a quick review of our environmental education program. So I've been working with this program for the last 3 years. And our mission is to promote environmental awareness and understanding in the community and also promote sustainable practices. And some of the areas we've focused on the last few years are composting, waste reduction and recycling, food preservation as it relates to waste reduction, and hydroponics. Some of the activities we worked on are helping to start new community composting sites. We also have a hydroponics equipment loan program for schools where we loan out hydroponic systems on a semester by semester basis and provide training. We can perform food waste audits for schools and organizations and also provide education in the form of presentations, workshops, classes on a wide variety of environmental topics. So now let's talk about the impact of food loss and waste on the economy, food security, and the environment. And here's some statistics from the US EPA from 2022. So the yearly impact of food waste in the US is like driving 1 million loaded semi trucks across the United States. And that would be for transportation of food that is never going to get into the home and get eaten. Also, like wasting farmland in an area equivalent to California and New York, every household wasting $1,500 on uneaten food, and also water the equivalent of 9 million Olympic swimming pools. So watering agricultural land that, again, is not going to produce food that is going to be eaten. And so where does food loss and waste happen? Well, 17% is at farms, and that could be due to environmental factors like weather or pests. Then 15% is lost in manufacturing and processing the food. 20% is lost at consumer-facing businesses like grocery stores, and you've probably seen that consumers don't like to purchase food that doesn't look good. So if it's bruised or damaged in some way, it's probably not going to make it on the display shelf. And then finally, almost half, 48% of the food loss and waste occurs in homes. So the purpose of our project was to figure out what, where, when, how, and why this happens, and then develop a program to address it. So our project was done in 3 phases. I joined in the second phase. Phase 1 was to survey UCANR staff and volunteers, and that included master gardeners and master food preservers, to determine their awareness, practices, and needs with regard to household food waste. And we found out that the biggest needs from staff and volunteers were educational materials and training to be able to talk about the topic. And then phase 2 was to conduct focus groups in the community about household food waste. So we focused on the low resource communities we work with through FNEP and CalFresh, and those are the people who are most financially impacted. And then phase 3 was the development of a series of lessons that we piloted in 7 counties in California. And the next step in phase 3 is to train educators on how to deliver these lessons. So the topics I'm going to discuss come from the 5 lessons we developed for our project. The first is shop smarter, plan ahead, and again, all about planning and shopping. Efficient kitchen, about cooking. Food for keeps, organizing your kitchen, about food storage. Chill out, preserving food by freezing. So we wanted to do a deep dive into freezing because it's one of the most accessible food preservation methods. And then finally, green your routine, about composting and waste sorting. So let's start with the first lesson, shop smarter, plan ahead. So each lesson had learning objectives. The objectives for this lesson were to define household food waste, describe how reducing food waste can reduce spending and save money, use meal planning tools to create a shopping list, and then identify strategies for grocery shopping. And each of our lessons had hands-on activities, which we will not be able to do by video, but I can describe some of them. We also gave incentives to the participants of these classes. One was the shopping list with meals in mind. We created a pad with a magnet on the back that could be put on the refrigerator. Also use first stickers to put on things in the refrigerator we want to use before they spoil. And then the picture on the right is our advisor, Yu Meng, who was working with the participants to come up with tips for shopping in different parts of the grocery store. So first, a question. How much does the average American family spend on food that goes to waste each year? Is it $500, $1,000, $1,200, or $1,500? And we talked about this earlier. Yeah, it's $1,500, and that money could definitely be better spent. So then in terms of weight, every American wastes about 290 pounds of food a year. And that's roughly the weight of a household refrigerator. And wasted food is wasted money. So by reducing your household food waste, you can save money and protect the environment. So before you shop, plan the meals you're going to eat, and then shop your kitchen first by checking what foods you already have on hand in your cupboards, your refrigerator, and your freezer, and then note what needs to be eaten soon before it spoils. Then add everything you don't have to your shopping list. So that's our shopping with meals in mind list. So what do you have in hand? What needs to be eaten first? And also check with other members of your household about what they want to eat. All these things may sound obvious, but we found that many people in our classes didn't make a shopping list at all. So now I'm going to go into tips for general shopping and then tips on shopping for different types of foods. So first, for the general shopping tips, use your shopping list to guide your purchase. Doesn't really help you if you make the shopping list, but then don't use it. But while you're in the store, watch out for those good deals and those treats by the checkout line. So with regard to the good deals, ask yourself if you're going to buy that big bag of oranges, will you use it all before it spoils? Or is there some way that you can preserve all that food that you're buying? So if you're buying a large quantity and you're not going to eat it, it really isn't a good deal. Don't shop when you're hungry, because then all those treats on the end caps as you go around to the next aisle, those start looking pretty good. Same with the checkout line. And then try substitutions in your recipes. So you may be in the produce department and you're looking for broccoli, but if the broccoli doesn't look fresh or it's really expensive this week or the store is out of it, try something different. Could be carrots or cauliflower or something like that. Or you can use a frozen or canned version instead. Now for fruits and vegetables, first off, buy fruits and vegetables that are in season. They're going to be fresher. They're going to be less expensive. They're going to last longer. They're going to taste better. If you need to use something that's not in season, then consider the canned or frozen version. And then buy the amount you need for the meals on your list. So if you buy too much, it might spoil before you use it. And then consider buying canned or frozen fruit and vegetables. They're going to last longer if you're not going to use it right away. They could be less expensive than fresh, but you have to watch out for added ingredients. For instance, in fruit, it might come in a sugary syrup, and better not to buy that. And then for vegetables, there might be a lot of salt in the liquid that it's canned with. And then a couple more tips. It's usually a better idea to buy loose produce instead of prepackaged, because then you can buy exactly what you need. And you can also look to see what the quality is of each piece of fruit or each vegetable. Then also choose fruits that vary in ripeness. So for instance, it may be tempting to buy that whole bunch of bananas, but if they're all green, then they're going to probably ripen at the same time, and you may not be able to use them up once they're ripe. So maybe buy a few ripe ones that you can use in the next few days, and then save fewer green ones for later. And same with avocados. And then here's some tips for breads, grains, and beans. For the bread, you want to check for the freshness at the store. Make sure that the packages are well sealed and the bread is not stale. As with all foods, choose foods with the latest date. So look for the use by or best if used by date. Also buy the amount that you're going to use soon. You can keep whole grains in the freezer for several months, and bread works really well in the freezer. You can just either thaw it in the refrigerator or put it in the toaster. And then canned goods, we talked about that a little bit before. They can last a long time, maybe more than a year, but only buy what you're going to use, because if you're not going to use it up before it goes bad, or you're going to forget about it in the back of your cabinet, it's not really going to be helping you. And then you want to make sure that the cans are in good condition so that the seal is intact. And then for dairy, it's especially important to buy the freshest products. So look for the latest sell-by date. And those products might be in the back of the refrigerated case. So you may have to look for the newest ones. And then for meat and seafood, safety becomes an issue. You want to separate raw meat and seafood from other foods in your cart, because you may have, some of those juices, if the package is not well sealed, are going to drip onto your other food. So you may want to put that meat and seafood in a plastic bag before you put it in your cart. And then, as with anything that is perishable, you want to pick it up toward the end of your shopping trip. And the rule of thumb is to make sure you don't leave perishable foods out more than 2 hours at room temperature. So you want to freeze them or refrigerate them as soon as you can when you get home. And if the temperature is really hot outside and you're going to be taking a longer trip, they might not even last as long as 2 hours. And then for frozen foods, same thing. You want to pick them up last so they don't thaw while you shop. And if they do thaw, even if it's for a short while, that will decrease the quality. All right, moving on to cooking with Efficient Kitchen. So the objectives for this lesson are to discover recipes that can be used to repurpose leftovers, learn how to stretch produce by using more parts of a fruit or vegetable, and then using the website eatfresh.org to search for new recipes. So eatfresh.org is a website from CalFresh, and it's a great source of budget-friendly recipes. And you can use the search bar to search by ingredient. So you can look for recipes to use up what you have. You can also search by meal, say breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, cuisine, dietary requirement like gluten-free or lactose-free, or vegetarian, or you can also look for an entire meal plan. And another nice feature is that the number of servings can be adjusted. And here's a broccoli stem salad recipe where, normally a lot of us will throw out those big stems and just use the florets in our recipes. But here's a recipe that's really delicious where you can use those stalks of broccoli. And this comes from eatfresh.org. Another type of recipe that you can Google is building your own fried rice or building your own frittata or whatever dish it is that you want to make, where you can substitute different grains, proteins, and vegetables in the recipe. So you can pick a grain other than rice, say millet or quinoa, and then whatever protein you want, which could be tofu if you're vegetarian, or it could be chicken, meat, or fish, and then whatever vegetables and fruits you want. So this type of recipe will tell you the different quantities of each ingredient, and then you can just use what's in your refrigerator and then top it off with a sauce, and then maybe use onion or garlic for seasoning as well as spices. So here's some ways to stretch your produce. You definitely want to think about eating your greens. So there are many root vegetables like beets that are sold with their edible greens still attached, and those can have a lot more nutrition than the root part of the vegetable. And then if you can keep the skins on your vegetables, that also provides more nutrition, like skins of potatoes, yams, carrots, ginger, other root vegetables are high in minerals and fiber. You just want to make sure to scrub all the dirt off them first. And then also you could have ends or parts of the vegetable or fruit that are somewhat less appealing for your dish. So say celery, broccoli, greens, bell peppers, and you could put those in the freezer to use later for homemade vegetable stock. And then broccoli stems do make up a lot of weight of the broccoli that we buy. So don't throw out those stems. If they are especially woody, you can peel them and then just use the inner parts. But I've found that I can usually use the whole stem in a stir fry. And especially when you're cooking it, that tends to soften it. And then the great equalizer is a smoothie. So you can blend extra fruits and vegetables into a smoothie or a sauce. And I like to do this if I have some spinach that is a little bit old and say I don't want to use it or I can't use it all in a salad, I'll just throw it into my smoothie for extra nutrition. And these plots just show a comparison between the nutrients in beet greens versus the nutrients in the beetroot. And you can see that in comparison, the nutrients in the greens are very high in vitamin A, vitamin C, and potassium. Okay, so the next lesson is food for keeps, organizing your kitchen. And this is about storage. So the learning objectives here are to learn about the best by, sell by, and other types of expiration dates on food. Look into storage timelines for both quality and safety, and then practice the best food storage strategies. And one way to figure out where to store different types of fruits and veggies is to go to the website stopwaste.org and look at their fruit and veggie storage guide. So it will show you what would need to be, say, stored in the refrigerator versus the countertop and how to best store it. Now, dates can be really, really confusing. So what do they mean? I think the big takeaway here is that most of these dates talk about quality, not safety. So if we look at the sell by date, that just tells that's mainly for the store to tell the store how long to display the product for sale. So you would want to buy the product before the sell by date, and usually they take it off the shelf by the time it reaches that date. But it doesn't say anything about the safety of the food. You can still eat the food after the sell by date. but that's just for best quality. Then a use by date is the last date recommended for use of the product for peak quality. And the date's determined by the manufacturer of the product. So again, use by date is for quality. It is not for safety. And in general, you can use a product after that use by date. And then same with best if used by or before date for best flavor and quality. So again, most of these dates are for peak quality. The only exception is infant formula, and that used by date is for safety. And another thing to keep in mind is that the dates are not required by the government except for formula. So there aren't that many hard and fast rules on using these dates, but you don't need to worry that if something's gone past, say, its use by or best if used by date, you don't have to worry necessarily that you're going to get sick by eating the food. You have to use your senses to figure that out. So how do you tell if food is still good? One way is to use the Food Keeper app. And you can find that at foodsafety.gov. And then you can get to that from your computer. It's not a phone app. And then look up different foods, and it'll tell you how long those foods can normally be stored and still be safe. And if they're stored in the refrigerator versus the freezer, etc. And so how do you know when to throw away or compost food? Well, first, one thing to keep in mind is that spoilage is mostly related to product quality, not food safety. So if something's a little bit discolored or wilted, you can probably still eat it. But mold growth is kind of another thing, because in, say, a firmer fruit or vegetable or a hard cheese, if there is some mold growing, usually you can just cut it off. However, if it's something that's soft or more liquidy, then that mold is going to spread throughout the whole product. So you wouldn't want to eat that. But mainly use your senses. If the product looks bad or the texture's off or it smells bad, then throw it out. Our motto is, if in doubt, throw it out. And we don't recommend that you eat the product as your first action. Maybe you'll eat it by accident and then find out that it tastes really bad and you're going to throw it away. But that's not the first thing that you should do, because it could have bacteria, could make you sick. So definitely smell it and look at it first. And then anything that we would consider fully rotten is going to be slimy, moldy, it has a bad smell, and you don't want to eat those. So what if you have something that still it's not totally spoiled, but it's past its peak? So for most fruits and vegetables, you can just cut away those bruised or partially rotten parts and then clean it. If something's starting to wilt, say lettuce, make sure that it's being stored properly in your refrigerator, or you might be able to freeze it depending on how you're going to use it. And then if you cut food, make sure that you're wrapping it or putting it in a container. You don't want to leave perishables out of the refrigerator for more than 2 hours, as I mentioned earlier. Also, if things are starting to wilt, say lettuce leaves, sometimes you can cut them off and put them in a jar of water and they'll come back, at least for a short period. You can, if something is still good to eat, but maybe it doesn't look that great, and it's a minor part of a recipe, you can cook or bake with it. You can make smoothies, and then if all else fails, try to put it in your green bin or your compost bin. And then what about leftovers, restaurant leftovers? So if you are planning to go out after eating at a restaurant for several hours, you should skip the leftovers because again, you don't want things sitting out for perishable things sitting out for more than 2 hours at room temperature. And in general, the faster food gets into the refrigerator, the lower likelihood that it's going to grow bacteria and make you ill. And then leftovers in general should be eaten within 4 days. Leftovers at a restaurant, you don't really know how long the food was sitting out before it got to your table. So you need to kind of keep that in your mind when you're thinking about those 2 hours sitting out at room temperature. Also, you want to, if you're going to reheat the leftovers, it's best to reheat just the portion that you're planning to eat. But if you don't finish what you reheated, then refrigerate it as soon as possible so you can safely reheat it again. And then for reheating, you want to make sure if it's something that's eaten hot that you are heating it up to a high enough temperature. So food internal temperature should be about 165 degrees. If you put something in the microwave, make sure you're spreading it out, you're stirring it so that the whole thing is heated evenly. In the oven temperature should be at least 325. Never use a slow cooker to reheat because you don't want food sitting in the danger zone. And the danger zone is considered 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And then if you have any liquids like soup, sauces, gravy, boil them at least for a short time before you eat them. Okay, moving on to freezing. So the learning objectives here are to recognize the benefits of freezing excess foods, learn how to freeze food safely, and then in the class, we prepare a pesto and show how to freeze it. So freezing safely is important. So here are some safety tips. First, and this goes for any kind of food handling, you want to start with everything clean. So clean countertops, utensils, hands, produce, or whatever it is that you're freezing. And you want to cool or chill the foods first before you fill your freezer safe containers or bags, just so that it's going to freeze as quickly as possible. And the next slide talks about what freezer safe means. And when you store in bags, you want to get as much air out as you can, and then freeze foods as soon as they're packaged and sealed. And one of the most important things is to label packages with the name of the product, the date you packaged it, and the date to be used by. If you look up, how long something can last, then you want to make sure that you're using it up by that date. So when you put something in the freezer, it's not always easy to figure out what it is once it's frozen. So that's the reasoning for putting the name of the product on it. Then I also do this labeling for things I put in the refrigerator because I want to know, I may forget when I made that meal and I want to know how long it's been. Most vegetables can be cooked without thawing first, so they can be, if they're coming from the freezer, they can be cooked right away. And then if you do need to thaw food, do it quickly in the refrigerator, the microwave, or cold water. You never want to do that at room temperature in warm water because that's a good environment for bacteria to grow. And then for packaging tips, so you want to use freezer safe packaging And that means usually it has a little snowflake symbol on it, or it'll say on it that it's freezer safe. You want it to be leak proof and airtight. You don't want it to crack at low temperatures. If you are freezing, say, some kind of stew or something that has an oil in it, you want it to be resistant to oil or grease, and then easy to seal, label, and date. And so those containers can be plastic, they can be glass, like for instance, canning jars are safe to freeze. They might be resealable plastic bags. And you want to leave a little bit of space at the top of the container. We call that headspace. So at least a ½ inch of headspace for all types of containers, and especially with the liquids, because the food is going to expand as it freezes. So here are some steps for preparing food for freezing. You want to pick fruits and vegetables at their peak when they're fresh and in season. They're never going to taste better than what they do when you put them in. The quality will actually degrade somewhat when freezing. You want to wash and prep the vegetables. So you're going to wash them in cold water, trim off whatever you are not going to use, and then peel them if you like. And then if you're going to eat them cut, then cut them at that time. For vegetables, you want to blanch them first, which just means putting it, boiling them in water. And usually for most vegetables, it's a short time, and then cool them quickly in ice water, dry them off, and then package them for the freezer. And the reason you want to do that is vegetables contain enzymes that are going to degrade the color and the quality. So you want to stop the action of those enzymes. So for blanching vegetables, there are blanching guides out there. One is from the University of New Hampshire Extension, and it's called Freezing Vegetables Fact Sheet. And so you can see on this guide that for asparagus, talks about the preparation and then the time based on the size of the asparagus spears. So you can see at the most, it's going to take 4 minutes of blanching. Beans, only 3 minutes, but something like beets or a root vegetable, this one, you want to cook it until it's tender before you freeze it. So that could take up to 50 minutes. And then you want to package your fruits or vegetables for the freezer. So if you're worried about the pieces sticking together, you could freeze them in a single layer on a cookie sheet and then put them in your freezer safe bag, jar, or container, but you don't necessarily have to do that. And again, there are many different kinds of containers that are freezer safe. And then there are other foods that you may not have thought about freezing, but milk can be frozen. You just want to put it into smaller airtight containers and leave room for expansion. Eggs, you can store eggs longer than a month in the freezer by cracking them and mixing the whites with the yolks and then freezing them. And then cheese works best, freezing works best with hard cheeses, so you can shred or slice it before freezing. Soft cheeses do not usually freeze well. And then for bread, just put it in a heavy-duty freezer bag and freeze, and then you can either defrost it or stick it in the toaster. And so this is a pesto recipe we do in our class, and we do the cilantro recipe just because it's something a little bit different that people might not have tried. And then the great thing with pesto and many other foods is that you can freeze it in an ice cube tray so that you're going to have individual servings. So you could do that with pesto, herbs in oil or water, broth or stock. You could do it with minced garlic or garlic paste, lemon juice or zest, tomato paste, yogurt, berries, coffee, all kinds of ideas. And you can do it in one of two ways. One is you buy a ice cube tray that has a cover on it that seals well, or once it's frozen, you pop out those cubes and then put them in a resealable plastic bag. Okay, our last lesson is Green Your Routine on composting and waste sorting. So the learning objectives here are to recognize the benefits of composting and identify which materials can be composted or recycled. So in spite of your best efforts, there might be things like eggshells that you are going to need to find a home for that you are not going to eat. So what is composting? Just in case you're not familiar, it is using the natural process of decomposition and decay that turns organic waste into a natural fertilizer that looks something like soil. So by organic waste, we mean something that was once alive. So that could be yard waste like grass clippings or leaves, or food scraps. And composting is really important because it reduces landfill waste. When we put organic waste in the landfill, that produces a greenhouse gas called methane. And methane is a contributor to global warming and climate change. And we actually have a law in California, SB 1383, that prohibits us from putting organic waste in the landfill. Also, if we're using this natural form of fertilizer, we are not going to be putting chemicals on our garden, chemical fertilizers in our garden. And that is going to improve water quality because we won't have those chemicals running off into our water sources. Also, composting can improve the soil when we use it as a soil amendment. So it can either hold water or drain water. And again, provides nutrients for plants. And then it can be used as a mulch to prevent weeds. So many ways that compost is a valuable material for your garden. So preparing waste for collection. In California, particularly, many places will have 3 different bins, one for trash, which is black, one for recyclables, which is blue, and one for green waste and possibly food waste, which is green. So it's really going to depend on your state and your city, what kind of system that you're using. So you need to check your local waste company's guidelines. In California, as part of SB 1383, most cities need to figure out how they're going to be separating their waste, and they can do it in whatever way they want. But in the end, they need to keep the organic waste out of the landfill. So here are some slides from Cal Recycle that show what, at least in California, what should be going in the landfill, what should be going in recycling, and what should be going to composting. So for the landfill, it's mainly things that are not recyclable and not compostable, and things made out of multiple materials. For the blue bin, the recycling bin, There are many materials that can be recycled, including glass bottles and jars. Also plastics. And plastics, you'll see that green chasing arrows symbol, and there's usually a number in there. Those can go into the recycling, although your waste company may not recycle every type of plastic material, but they'll know how to dispose of it. And then paper products, so it could be cardboard, paper bags, mail, newspaper, those kinds of things. And then what goes in the green bin? And this is the one that really tends to vary by location the most. So what can usually go in is yard waste for sure. In California, I would say most cities are going to eventually be able to take food waste. Some cities have it, some cities don't. So any kind of green material from garden trimmings can usually go in there. And then depending on your waste company, you may be able to put food in. And then maybe some lightly food soiled paper. So if you are able to collect food waste for the green bin, there may be different ways of doing it. This comes from Burtech Waste Industries, which is my waste company where I live. And what Burtech wants us to do is they will take all kinds of food waste. So that's fruit, vegetables, meat, seafood, bread, dairy, eggshells, bones, food soiled paper. And these may not be all the materials that you would want in your backyard compost bin. And then you put the food waste in a plastic bag and then tie it up and then throw the plastic bag in the green organics bin. Now the yard waste can go straight in the bin, but the food will go in that sealed plastic bag. And I know of other cities in California where the food waste just goes straight into the green bin. So again, check with your waste company on that. So just a little quiz as to what goes in the green bin. So can dried leaves go in the green bin? I would say in almost all cases, yes, if you have a green bin. What about shrimp with shells? Yes, you could put that in if your waste company allows food waste. What about a snack bag? Now this one, snack bags are made out of several different materials. There's like a plastic on it and a metal foil, and those things are fused together. They cannot be, at least at this point, separated. So those are never going to break down in a reasonable amount of time for composting. So that would not go in. And also because of that, the snack bags, at least where I live, cannot be recycled. And then a coffee filter with the coffee. So we would consider this food soiled paper along with food. So if your waste company takes food, then this could go in your green bin. Okay, so let's wrap it up with some key points from this lesson series. First, plan meals, shop your kitchen first, and make and use a shopping list to reduce food waste and save money. Use what you have. So modify your recipe using ingredients you already have on hand to use up all your leftovers. And then you want to stretch your produce. So use your vegetable peels when you can, the stalks, leafy greens, every part of your produce. Try freezing as an easy way to preserve excess food. We were surprised to see that there are a lot of people that don't do freezing or don't freeze as many things as can be frozen. And it does depend on, how big your family is and how much room you have in your freezer. But it is one of the easiest ways to preserve food. And then always follow safe food handling practices. So that goes for preparing, storing, freezing, thawing, and reheating food. And then remember that food date labels like sell by and use by are mainly for quality and not safety. And the main exception there is infant formula. And then if you can, put your organic waste in the green bin or compost, because that's going to help protect our environment. And so you are viewing this on YouTube. And just in case you're interested in other composting and gardening videos, we have them on our UCCE San Bernardino YouTube channel. So check those out. And then unfortunately, I'm not able to answer questions live here, but I do thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you need more help or information on any of these topics, you can contact Yu Meng, who's our youth, family, and community advisor in San Bernardino, Riverside, and Imperial counties, or Maggie O'Neill, our Master Gardener Coordinator. You can also contact our Master Gardener helpline or take a look at our Master Gardener website. And you may have noticed that my email is not included here, and that is because I will be retiring in a few days, but there will be others in our office who can help you and answer your questions. So thank you very much for listening, and hope that you take a look at some of our other videos.